Hey guys, what's going on? It's so awkward to start YouTube videos. You don't know how to start them really because there's a lot of people who started off really with a lot of energy, but I guess that's just not me. But this is my second video in 2 days, and I'm still in Cluj, and I'm still like in the previous video. Like I said in the previous video, I'm in Cluj in Romania, and I'm here to cover the 2019 Transilvania International Film Festival, and for Fred Film Radio mainly. But I just got out of the screening of my first screening of the festival, and while I was watching it, a few minutes in, I had the idea to just, why not start making videos where I would talk about the films that I watch, because after all, it's kind of like something that I've been doing all my life is talking about films. And what I used to do in writing, I guess maybe it's time to make a transition. Maybe it's time for me to actually record a video of myself talking about the films. Not only that, but talking about the films shortly after I've seen them. This was a particularly interesting film to talk about, and a particularly stimulating film to talk about, because firstly, it was the first film that I watched here in Cluj at the festival, so I thought it would be nice to talk about that, and it would be a nice way to start a new sort of video series. By the way, as you can see, the TV in the background is playing. I always leave it on CNN because I like to, well, first of all, I can charge things, hook up a cable, and I can just, hook up my cable, and I can just like charge things. I'm not charging anything right now, but maybe I should. What do I do? I'll put this in. Sorry guys, this is real life, and it's uncut, because a lot of the videos that I'm filming here are uncut. I'm completely dedicated to just filming really things how they're happening and as they're going on. So anyways, I thought it would be a good video, a good film to start this new series with, because it was the first film that I watched at the festival, but also because it was a film about, what is going on? It was a film I wanted to talk about because it's a film about a film critic, and one of the most famous film critics of all time, and I'm talking about Pauline Kael. I just went to see the documentary about Pauline Kael. It's called What She Said, The Art of Pauline Kael. Pauline Kael. I may mispronounce her name throughout this video, but just because I'm talking fast, and it's kind of a difficult thing for me is to follow, when I'm not interacting with someone, I'm just, my thoughts are racing through my mind, and I'm trying to make it, have a structure, to make them come out with some sort of a structure. The documentary is directed by Rob Garver, and for those who don't know Pauline Kael, she was, she's one of the most famous film critics of all time. She really put film criticism on the map in terms of commercial journalism, in the sense that her style of writing attracted readers for whatever publication she wrote, and it also sold books that sometimes went beyond, the film scholar crowd or the film buff crowd. And also she's famous for having some really, really, really strong opinions about films that have influenced the way in which people have thought about the films that were out during her time. I think one of her greatest accomplishments, if one can call it that, is defining the period in American cinema that is now probably the most celebrated in American film history. And I'm talking about the American New Wave, a period in during the 60s and the 70s thereabouts, where where filmmakers like Martin Scorsese, Francis Ford Coppola, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, who else? So many people came out. William Friedkin, so many people. It's hard to mention them all. Robert Altman, and she was one of the first ones to really understand the moment and document it, because the film that is kind of credited for kickstarting that era is Bonnie and Clyde. And that's a film that I personally love, and a lot of people love. And for some reason, people just didn't get it at first. The majority of the people didn't get it at first. But she did. She saw something in it, because she just had her own way of seeing. And she was an independent thinker. It might have had something to do with her being a woman at a time when, most film critics, the vast majority of film critics, were men. So they had formed a certain ideology of film that we're only getting out of now, and I definitely understand that discourse that is happening right now, and I totally empathize with it, and I understand it, and I promote it. But yeah, her independent thought might have had something to do with that. But I also think that she wouldn't have particularly been too keen about, the dominating feminist discourse that's happening at the moment, simply because she just saw things her own way. And that was good, because the way in which she talks about films in her writings, or even when she did interviews, and she worked in radio as well. She just, she had an ability to see the bad where people saw only good, and to see the good where people only saw the bad. So the case of the latter is Bonnie and Clyde. Everyone else pans that film. She doesn't. She understands that it's a special film for American film history, and it's a very important film that people should watch, and she's promoting it. She's going out there while everyone else is bashing it. And on the other hand, she didn't like David Lean, who is the director of Lawrence of Arabia and all these great epics that people just love, and I myself love, and she's talking how she absolutely hates the guy. And she also comes out with an entire book that's dedicated to, I think it was a book, might have been like just a long essay, but anyways, it was kind of about the screenwriter of Citizen Kane, and how Orson Welles took credit for it, and how his fame overpowered the fame that he could have had. His name escapes me now, but look it up. Obviously, and Chaplin, the way she got famous, or that's what people say anyways when they tell her story, is that she wrote a bad review about a Chaplin film called Limelight that everyone adored, and I myself absolutely love. She hated it. She saw it as completely lacking self-awareness, and it was just Chaplin just telling the world that he was still the greatest entertainer in the world, and he was, everything that you could think of, she criticized the film for. And she just saw the film in a different way. Do I agree with her? No, I don't agree with a lot of her writings. But that's kind of the idea. It's like just starting a discourse where you have your own opinions and you're not afraid to share them. And so it's a very empowering thought. And even though I don't agree with a lot of the things that she said about movies, and even about her tone, I definitely find her inspiring, because not only of the way in which she talks about movies, but the way in which she was unafraid to put herself out there. I think part of the reason why she became one of the most famous film critics of all time is also because she put her face out there. Like, she promoted herself as much as she promoted the films by writing about them. So people knew about her. She was on the Dick Cavett shows, and she was on all these great TV shows that were on at the time, and she really made a name for herself. And still, it was surprising to find in this documentary that she wasn't really able to make a living from her film criticism, which is something that I think people should keep in mind, especially if they want a future in film criticism. You're not just going to be a film critic. You have to just do something else to go along with it. And that can be just writing other things, and maybe teaching, or there's so many things that you can do with your life, or maybe just working in a factory. It doesn't really matter what you do, but you're probably not going to make a living out of it. Pauline Kael, one of the most famous film critics of all time, struggled to make a living, even though she was writing for all these publications like The New Yorker, and even though The New Yorker thought of her as one of their most important writers, and she brought a lot of readers to The New Yorker. So she gave me, just looking at that film, watching it, gave me the idea to actually make a video about what I had seen and what I had experienced. The documentary itself is directed by Rob Garver, and it's a pretty standard documentary, but it's well made, and I really appreciate it. The beauty of these documentaries isn't so much in the solid way in which they are structured or made. It's more about the fact that they tell the story of people that maybe, of someone that maybe people don't know too much about. And Pauline Kael might be one of those people who people who love movies know about, because her name is everywhere, and people talk about her a lot. But if they don't, they may not know of her. And it's just a story, even if you're not into film criticism, you kind of understand her, into film criticism or films in general. You kind of understand her story, and you understand her struggles, and you understand where she was coming from. For example, one of the parts in the film that I thought was really cool was that, when she was living in New York, she was hosting all these parties, and they actually underlined the fact, I don't remember who it was, but they underlined the fact that it wasn't the age of drugs, it was still the age of wine and cigarettes, which I thought was a cool line. Inadvertently, I don't think it was meant to be, but it came as the highlight line for me. It was the age of wine and cigarettes and talking about movies, in each other's houses. So Kael, when she hosted parties at her own house, she would, have people drinking in one room and talking, and then she would always have a film projector running that would be screening movies non-stop, which I think is a cool idea. And if whenever I'm gonna have my own flat or house or whatever, I can't think of when that will be because of my constant traveling. But when I do, I'm definitely going to have the same thing. Let me just check one thing. Definitely going to have the same thing where I'm just going to have a film screening in one room so that when people are too drunk, they've had too much wine or they've had too much something else, something fun, they're just about to fall over the floor and they're kind of feeling a little queasy in the stomach, and maybe the booze isn't going the right place. It's not going to the head, it's going to the stomach. I just get them to chill out, and watch movies in the living room or something like that, laying on the floor, and you'll have people sprawled around like they're in an opium den from Confessions of an Opium Eater, you know what I mean? Because that's kind of what it is. But there was a lot in this film, and really, like, it made me look at Kael in a different way, not just the mean sort of like sometimes too blunt and kind of film critic who had her strong opinions. It was also about someone who was just a communicator, was a great communicator. And she put herself out there, even though she wasn't, someone who would necessarily be the person that would seek it. You'd look at them and you'd say, well, she's an attention seeker. She probably wasn't, although there must have been an extroverted side that made her like so fearless. So I really admire that in her. And just looking at all of the things that she does and all her thoughts, which really, I struggle, there may be some debate about this, but I struggle to see her thoughts as following any sort of wave. They make a point that it might have something to do with the auteur theory, but I don't think so, I think she is an independent thinker. She was, she was the reason why so many films that were kind of looked down upon and seen as trashy, were taken seriously at last. We're talking about genres as well that maybe weren't taken seriously before her. Finally, she was able to bring them exposure and people were celebrating them, and as they should have, So that was one of the great things about her. There's a lot of guests in this documentary too, from all the different times, from all the different eras. You even have a little snippet with Francis Ford Coppola, who I haven't seen in a while. I don't know what he's up to. I haven't really checked back with him, but hopefully he's okay. But you've also got Quentin Tarantino. You got all these people, who are well known and they're willing to share stories about the way in which Kael's writings touched them. Or I'm saying writings, but she didn't just do the writing. She worked on the radio. She did interviews and stuff like that. Her writings, sometimes included the experience itself of being in the movie and watching the film with other people who, and noting when they were laughing or when she felt the urge to laugh and everyone else kind of turned around to, give them, that look that's like, shut up, bitch, kind of that bitchy look. And she would record that and she would include the experience of watching the film in her reviews. So I think, it might be a little stretch it might be too constricting to call some of her writings reviews, because they were reviews in terms of they were in the sense that they were critiques of the film that she was watching, but because she was taking into account everything else, the experience of watching the film in the screening room and all of the different personal things that she brought in, and I think she wrote in first person, a lot of the time, which is great. I love reviews that are written in first person. I think they need to be rediscovered. She was an independent thinker. She wasn't afraid to communicate about, she was the first to understand certain great things about films that really made the history of cinema as we understand it now. Even though I don't agree with everything she said, I certainly admire her energy, and I really envy it. I wish I had the same approach to it. Instead of just looking at the lens, I keep looking at the screen where I can see my face to see if I'm getting out of this shot. Am I here? Am I here? Is my hair looking okay? How can I? I gotta stop doing that. Pauline probably didn't care about that, or at least the documentary itself doesn't touch upon it. So I guess that's what inspired me to kind of record a video about it, and I got a little excited in this video, but hopefully the next ones will be a little more subdued. I am planning to make more, and see where it goes. My hope is to connect with people who also wanna get into this exchange. It's really not reviews that I'm looking to do. It's thoughts, just documenting my thoughts shortly after watching a film. And it's probably not going to be about every film that I watch, because that would be almost impossible. It's mostly, I guess, films that I see while I'm on the road, and hopefully also in the cinema, and maybe at film festivals. We'll see. But this is not a film review. That's what's clear. It's actually going to be the title of the series, I think. It's not a film review. I gotta go because I'm gonna have to go to a live music event here at the festival, and then after that I'm watching the Champions League final because I'm a big football fan. I'm a Juventus fan, but I enjoy watching football. I have no hatred for any team. I've been a football fan all my life. I love Juventus. We got knocked out, so obviously we're not in the final. It's Liverpool and Tottenham. I'm still not sure who I'm gonna go for. They're both English teams, and I'm not. I don't know which team I would pick. I guess I like the Beatles, so my heart says Liverpool, but because Tottenham are the underdogs, then I would say Tottenham. I don't know. Anyways, guys, I don't know when I'll be shooting a film. Maybe I'll make this a regular thing. I want to get more used to talking in front of the camera, and if I don't do it myself, I don't know who else is going to help me do it, because I've been going around to different film festivals for 5 years, and I feel like I got to do something. I got more to say than what I get to say. So I got a personality that I need to get out there. You know what I mean? Like Pauline Kael. She was able to get her personality out there. Her personality is the reason why she became the celebrated film critic that we still celebrate to this day. It was her personality. Critics, stop writing, reviews the way that the platforms want you to write just because you want to earn a living. Pauline Kael wasn't able to make a living out of her film writing, and still we remember her for the film writing that she did, for the writing about films that she did. She didn't worry too much about making money. Well, she did, obviously, because she was a human being, but she found other ways to make money. At the same time, she did quit her radio job because they weren't paying her, so she knew that she had to get some retribution, but she never sacrificed her ideals because she had to make money. So she kept her integrity as a film critic. So if you want to be known as a film critic, don't follow the crowd. Treasure your independent thoughts. Do something with them, even if it's not film criticism, even if it's something else, even if it's shooting silly videos like I am. Just don't give up on them, because your thoughts are the most precious thing that you have, and that's, I guess, a very difficult thing to understand. And I understand, because I understand too. I feel like an idiot shooting this video right now. I'm like, who the hell is gonna watch this? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. That's what we got to learn from Pauline Kael. None of it matters. But the integrity that you have to yourself, and the respect that you have for your way of thinking, your way of being, your way of doing things. Don't restrict yourself. Have respect for life itself, but also have, be aware of the fact that you've got to be true to yourself. I'm talking to whoever's on the other side of this video, but I guess it also counts for myself too. All right, I gotta go. So it was a pleasure. Bye-bye.